Moving on Wednesday, the National Transportation Safety Board received a petition from former investigators and family members of victims from TWA's Flight 800 that crashed over Long Island, New York in 1996. In the petition, they claim there is, quote, new and material evidence and analysis that refute the NTSB's original findings. A new documentary argues there's a case.
The petition for reconsideration is a request, and we have met the grounds. There's absolutely no question. We have ample information. Whether or not they accept that's a different story. But assuming, and I believe that Chairman Hirschman's a fair person, I think she'll give it due consideration. And at that point, we will be glad to sit down and meet with the safety board staff and lay out everything we have.
Former federal officials and some of the family are challenging renewed claims that the flight was taken down by a missile and that the federal government orchestrated a massive cover-up to hide that fact. Our guest on the phone is former lead investigator James Kallstrom, also former deputy director of the FBI. Mr. Kallstrom, thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us. I just wonder, what's your reaction after all this time that these conspiracy theories have resurfaced about the circumstances around the crash of Flight 800?
Well, I guess it's a bit disturbing that, 17 years have gone by, and, some of these people have been making charges for 17 years that I'm aware of. So this really isn't a new issue. The fact that former NTSB worker bees, supposedly had different opinions on where the decisions were going, and their superiors, had other ideas of what the outcome was, now, rises to the stage of a documentary, I think is absolutely outrageous, quite frankly. I don't believe the people that are making these claims are qualified technically, from the standpoint of background, education, and experience to make such claims.
Would that also apply to investigator Hank Hughes, who we've seen in the news for the last few days, saying that there's new evidence?
I don't think Hank Hughes has a degree in metallurgy. He was putting pieces of the plane together. I remember him. He was a good guy, but he doesn't have the academic background or the experience to make qualifications on metallurgy and how different blast affects metal. We have to bring in experts for that. We have people in the FBI laboratory, but we also hired independent experts in that particular field. We're talking about looking at things under microscopes and looking at how the different atoms line up, et cetera, To the unqualified, the plane looks like an atomic bomb blew up the whole plane. But, I'm talking about the science of metallurgy, and I don't think they're really qualified. Of course, I don't know all these people, but it doesn't seem like they are. And then, what's the motive? I mean, why would anybody involved in this at a high level, director of NTSB or myself, who was the assistant director in charge of New York, why would we cover up something like this? I mean, why would we spend the time we spent? I mean, at the very beginning of this, first off, let me explain. The FBI showed up in this case because we investigate, crime, in particular Title 18 crimes, destruction of American aircraft, or crime aboard an aircraft are two federal crimes that the FBI has jurisdiction in. And then NTSB shows up at accident sites because, that could be caused by pilot error or mechanical, electrical, or bad weather or those types of things, non-criminal. So you have two different agencies with two different jurisdictions.
Let me jump in there if I can, James.
The FBI has, a very high, bar that we have to jump over if we're going to say something was terrorism. We have to actually have the proof. There has to be, stand up the scrutiny for decades. And that's why we stayed in the investigation so long and demanded that we recover most of the airplane, which we actually did. And NTSB has different standards, so it's two different agencies working together, but, with the same result. If at any point NTSB found the exact proof and they felt qualified to make a statement at that point, then that would have been the end of it, or vice versa if the FBI did. But we ended up having to prove a negative.
Let me just ask you very quickly, we're almost out of time. Would you be adverse to reopening the investigation? to looking into these claims of new information, or perhaps that some of the witness testimony was not taken seriously the last time?
We did take the witness testimony seriously. That's why we dedicated almost 1,000 agents to this. But now, I'm not opposed if these people are qualified to make such charges. You know, if they have the scientific background. I don't believe any of them do. They have one physicist on the team who, you know, has never worked in this area. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's one thing to just make these outrageous claims. That happens in every major case. But I'm sorry that it puts the families through this thing. I don't think there's any basis for what they're saying.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. James Kallstrom, thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us. We do appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Arise America.